second meeting. We'll start off with number 200, The Steps of the Good Man. And after 3, 1, 2, 3. The steps of the good man are ordered by the Lord, and he delighted in his way. Love me for, he should not be come down for the Lord upon him with his hand. And with his hand, for the Lord upon him with his hand. Love me for, he should not be come down for the Lord upon him with his hand. The steps of the good man are ordered by the Lord, and he alive in his way. Love me for, he should not be come down for the Lord upon him with his hand. His hand, with his hand, for the Lord upon him with his hand. Love me for, he should not be come down for the Lord upon him with his hand. Sound good? Go to 112. Just a closer walk with D. And after 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I am weak, but thou art strong. Jesus, keep me from all wrong. I'll be satisfied and glad as I walk. Let me walk close to thee. Just a closer walk with thee. Granted, Jesus is my plea. Daily walking close to thee. Let it be, dear Lord, let it be. In his life of toils and snares. If I fall to the Lord who cares. Bear with me my burden share. None but thee, dear Lord, none but thee. Just a closer walk with me. Granted, Jesus is my plea. Daily walking close to thee. Let it be, dear Lord, let it be. Let it be, dear Lord, let it be. Sounding good? Get you up standing for the next one, please. Would be 303. Be strong. Before we sing the song, get Jerry to hold me in a word of prayer for us. Hallelujah. Praise the name of the Lord. Thank you, Jesus. Hallelujah.
Bless the Lord, we just thank you for this second afternoon meeting, and we just ask you to bless the music and bless the speaker and bless our eyes, our ears and our hearts too.
Hallelujah. Praise the name of the Lord. Hallelujah. Praise the Lord. And all the people said that. Amen. And after 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Be strong and of good courage. Be not afraid, never be dismayed. Be strong and of good courage. Be not afraid, never be dismayed. For the Lord thy God is with thee. For the Lord thy God is with thee. For the Lord thy God is with thee wherever you go. Be strong and of good courage. Be not afraid, never be Right, take your seats, go to 318, For I'm Persuaded. Do a couple more, then hand over to Paul for the word for the second meeting. And after 3, 1, 2, 3. For I'm persuaded to believe nothing could separate us from the wonderful love of God. For above He was sent as if the air living in the far in the simple world we trust. Neither height nor depth nor principalities, things present nor things to come. Though they're hazy, can never separate us from the wonderful love of God. Afraid to believe nothing could separate the wonderful love of God. For above He was sent as if He lay living beings while in the simple world we trust. Neither height nor depth nor principalities, things present nor things to come. Though they're hazy, can never separate from the wonderful love of God. Go to the last one now, 525. Once I was lost. Then after this one, hand over to Paul for the word. And after 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I was lost, but now I am found. Jesus is the answer for me. Took me out of darkness and put me in His light. Now I am free. I will keep on praising my Lord. Praising my Lord, singing hallelujah. Praising my Lord, singing hallelujah. Now I am free. I will keep on praising my Lord. Praising my Lord, singing hallelujah. Praising my Lord, singing hallelujah. Now I am free. I will keep on praising my Lord. Once I was lost, but now I am found. Jesus is the answer for me. He took me out of darkness and He set me in His light. Now I am free. I will keep on praising my Lord. Praising my Lord, singing hallelujah. Praising my Lord, singing hallelujah. Now I am free. I will keep on praising my Lord. Praising my Lord, singing hallelujah. Praising my Lord, singing hallelujah. Now I am free. I will keep on praising my Lord. Thanks, band, and hand over to Paul.
So I want to talk a little bit about ignorance, being ignorant. If we start in 1 Corinthians 13. It says in verse 11, when I was a child, I spoke as a child, I understood as a child, I thought as a child, but when I became a man, I put away childish things. For now we see through a glass darkly, but then face to face when the Lord comes back. Now I know in part, but then I shall know even as I am known. And as we walk on with the Lord all the time, we're learning and growing, and the Lord's revealing things to us. We learn more about the Lord and about His nature, and we learn the same about ourselves. We learn the same about the nature of the world, of fellowship. We're constantly growing if we choose to, if we look to the Lord, if we're active in these things, which we're doing today. Then we're constantly growing and learning. That's by choice. It doesn't happen automatically. We've got to choose to pray. We've got to choose to read. Choose to come here. It's a choice that we make every week, several times every week. It's a choice we make every day to pray and all that. We made that initial choice at first when we heard the gospel and we responded to it. We chose to leave that ignorance behind and to seek the Lord and follow Him. And we haven't turned back. We're still here, walking on. We need to keep making that same choice every day until the Lord comes back, to keep looking to Him and being led by Him. So when you're a child, you're ignorant of all these things. You don't know it. That's why we don't baptize infants. And you don't understand anything, and your life is all just about having fun, playing with your toys and with your friends, and you haven't got any responsibility. And it's a very happy time. And in the pursuit of a happy life, that's the way a lot of people want to remain, is just as ignorant about the things of the Lord and about our own nature and our own selves and our relationship with Him. Having no responsibility for these things, having no responsibility for sin and for what the Lord did on Calvary, and what He continues to do. But living in that kind of childlike ignorance, it's you can't go on when you're old enough to understand, and you're faced with the gospel, to choose to turn a blind eye to it. Isn't good. It doesn't lead to any good thing. Trying to be happy in life. Pursuing being happy as your goal isn't the right goal. If that's the goal, you'll most probably miss it. For all sorts of reasons. If that's your goal, you'll probably fail at it. If you want to get there and be happy, you've got to have better goals than that. Your goals have got to be to do what's right, and to be responsible for things, to take on responsibility, to be a servant. To come here and be a servant. Those kind of goals in life, to be better at that. If that's your goal, then you will be happy at the end of it. To have that kind of childlike attitude where you just want to be happy in life, that's what leads to great disappointment in it. We had a couple last week, was it, about someone being interviewed on telly saying that his goal in life is to retire early and sit on the beach drinking margaritas. His goal is to be happy, and that's what makes him happy every now and then. So that's what he wants his entire life to be. That will lead to disappointment. But if your goal is to work really hard and do the best you can and be responsible and look after your family and look after yourself and your work and all that, then you'll get the things that you want as well. And you'll be a lot happier in the meantime and in the end. So that's the way we must choose to live, is to keep wanting to just do the basic things in the Lord, be responsible for our walks in the Lord, and for each other, to look out for each other, and be a testimony for ourselves and for the people outside. and all the other things, all the other desires of our heart, the Lord will bless. If we go over to Proverbs 22. And verse 3. A prudent man foresees the evil and hides himself, but the simple pass on and are punished. By humility and the fear of the Lord are riches and honour and life. The prudent man, he doesn't want to be ignorant of anything. He wants to see the evil ahead and see which way to go. Well, the simple, the ones who want to live in that ignorance, the ones who want to just say, that's all that stuff, that's not for me, I'm not interested. You can't, you don't have a clear path in life. You will end up going off the wrong way, making all sorts of mistakes. And it does lead to harder times than you needed to ever have, being prudent and looking ahead and wanting to learn and understand, save yourself from a lot of that. There's a saying like ignorance is bliss, which you can kind of see at first glance. If you're ignorant of some bad things or whatever, then you're not worried about it, and you're happy. You're just like a child is completely ignorant of what it took to get all the toys. Someone had to go to work and save up and all this kind of stuff, and a child's ignorant of everything and is happy, and that's fine for a child, but not for us when we're older. Ignorance is only bliss, for as long as you remain ignorant, but sooner or later you will be snapped out of your ignorance, whether it's you learn the hard way or something, the event comes up and smacks you in the face, or you end up facing consequences. Sooner or later you will be snapped out of your ignorance, and the longer you remained in it, the worse it will be. The sooner you get yourself out of that state of being ignorant, of being unaware, the better things will be for you. And that's not a choice. You don't have a choice of whether or not that's ever going to happen. Sooner or later you will learn things, as we'll read here in 2 Samuel chapter 6. We'll start in verse 1. And David gathered together all the chosen men of Israel, 30,000. And David arose and went with all the people that were with him unto Baal of Judah, to bring up from thence the ark of God, whose name is called by the name of the Lord of hosts, that dwells between the cherubims. And they set the ark of God upon a new cart, and brought it out of the house brought it out of the house and drove on a new cart. In verse 4, and they brought it out of that house, accompanying the ark of God. And Ahio went before the ark. And David and all the house of Israel played before the Lord all manner of instruments made of fir wood, even harps and psalteries and timbrels and cornets and cymbals. And when they came to Nachron's threshing floor, Uzzah put forth his hand to the ark of God and took hold of it, for the oxen shook it. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against Uzzah, and God smote him there for his error, and there he died by the ark of God. And David was displeased because the Lord had made a breach upon Uzzah, and he called the name of the place Perez Uzzah to this day. They went and recovered the ark, and we're taking it back on a cart. They were supposed to. The instruction was that it was to be carried up on the shoulders, and the instruction was that no one was to touch any holy thing. And there they had it on a cart and being pulled along by oxen. It was a lot easier doing it that way. It was a lot easier. They weren't aware of the Lord. They've forgotten all about it. And you could say up until that point, ignorance was bliss. It was so much easier, rather than carrying it yourself on your shoulder, just having it pulled along by the oxen. Ignorance was bliss up until that point. But then he found out the hard way when he done something seemingly innocent. He just put his hand out to steady it as it was rocking, and he ended up losing his life over it. And later on they read what they were supposed to do. They found out, and they from then on carried it properly after a little while. That was the consequence of it. They were doing things wrong. It was easier for a time carrying it the way they were. But it was wrong, and that's what mattered. It didn't matter that they were getting it from A to B in an easier way. It would have been a lot better all round if they'd have kept the word of the Lord and knew what they were supposed to do, be fully aware of it, instead of learning the hard way like that. And over in Luke chapter 12, and verse 42. Who then is that faithful and wise steward whom the Lord shall make ruler over his household to give them their portion of meat in due season? Blessed is that servant whom his Lord, when he comes, shall find so doing. Of a truth I say unto you that he will make him ruler over all that he has. But if that servant say in his heart, my Lord delays his coming, and shall begin to beat the men servants and the maidens, and to eat and drink and to be drunken, the Lord of that servant will come in a day when he looks not for him, and at an hour when he is not aware, and will cut him in sunder, and appoint him his portion with the unbelievers. And that servant which knew his Lord's will, and prepared not himself, neither did according to his will, should be beaten with many stripes. But he that knew not, and did not commit these things did commit these things worthy of stripes, shall be beaten with few stripes. For whomsoever much is given, of him shall be much required, and to whom men have committed much, of him they will ask the more. And we read as well about, in the end times, people will be marrying and giving in marriage and this and that, and just like in the days of Noah, and then the flood came, and it all gets wiped away. Being ignorant of the things of the Lord, in the end you find out, just how important it is to walk on. And we've found out already. We found out the good way. We've received the Holy Spirit. We've received the benefits, and we've got so many testimonies. We see people in the world today. Mental health problems are rampant. All sorts of problems are rampant, and people are at a loss of, how to find peace in their lives. As we heard just before in Dave's talk, all the amount of testimonies he was able to list off of going through turmoil after turmoil and still having that peace and joy of the Lord. We have a wonderful testimony there. We have something great, and we never want to forget the things that we've got in the Lord, and being diligent about it, being busy with the Lord's business, and looking to be responsible, looking to be not like the little child who just plays with the toys and enjoys the good things but doesn't know where they came from or what the value of them was, but rather we want to be the people who serve one another and work for the Lord. That's where happiness is. That's where we get so many testimonies, where we can go through a trial, we can go through turmoil and still have that peace, and still have that hope for a good end when the Lord comes back. Whereas right now there's plenty of people in the world who have yet to hear about these things, or they have heard about them but don't see the value of it, who need to be shown our testimony. We'll go to 2 Samuel 12. We had a good look at this yesterday. Yes, that's the thing. We don't want to forget. We forget the Lord. We've had. We see. We've all seen a lot of people who have came to the Lord, got baptized, maybe got healed of something, or had a problem taken care of in life, and then we never saw them again. There's been plenty of people like that, and we don't want to forget that. And leave the Lord's strength, the Lord's care, thinking that we can get through life now on our own. When things are good, we don't want to forget that we need to pray. It's a lot easier to pray diligently when you're going through something, but when things are good, we want to be just as diligent, and not think, I can do this in my own strength now, and forget that really you can't. We want to remember who we are, what we are. We're still made of dust as we are right now. We're still in the flesh. We still have that all the weaknesses of it. And we just read a bit about David in chapter 12 and verse 1. After David, as we saw, we read all yesterday about David getting Uriah killed so he can have his wife. And then the Lord sent Nathan unto David in verse 1, and he came to him and said unto him, there were two men in one city, one rich and the other poor. The rich man had exceeding many flocks and herds, but the poor man had nothing save one little ewe lamb, which he had bought and nourished up, and it grew up together with him and with his children. It did eat of his own meat and drank of his own cup, and lay in his bosom, and was unto him as a daughter. And there came a traveller unto the rich man, and he spared to take of his own flock and of his own herd, yet to dress for the wayfaring man that was come unto him. But he took of the poor man's lamb and dressed it for the man that was come to him. And David's anger was greatly kindled against the man, and he said to Nathan, as the Lord lives, the man that has done this shall surely die, and he shall restore the lamb fourfold, because he did this thing, and because he had no pity. And Nathan said unto David, thou art the man. Thus saith the Lord God of Israel, I anointed thee king over Israel, and I delivered thee out of the hand of Saul, and I gave thee thy master's house and thy master's wives into thy bosom, and gave thee the house of Israel and of Judah. And if thou had been too little, I would moreover have given unto thee such and such things. Wherefore hast thou despised the commandment of the Lord to do evil in his sight? Thou hast killed Uriah the Hittite with the sword, and hast taken his wife to be thy wife, and slain him with the swords of the children of Ammon. And so David he found out, you're the man who did this thing. And it goes on that David fasted and prayed for the child, and when he died, he still rose up and praised the Lord. You see time and time again, David, when he makes a mistake and he gets it shown to him, he doesn't turn away from it. He doesn't pretend it didn't happen. He doesn't blame anyone else. He sort of wanting to be ignorant of his own nature, of his own shortcomings. But by facing it, by repenting and accepting it and turning to the Lord and trusting in Him, he was able to recover from all these things and carry on walking with the Lord. We never want to get to that point where we forget that we must rely on the Lord, that ourselves, we can't. The fellowship that we've got here, it's a great place. There's so much good in this place, but it didn't come from us. It didn't. We're not the ones that make it good. It's the Lord. And we can do all the same things. We can run meetings and we can write songs and all this in our own strength. It wouldn't produce the good that we've got here if it's just us doing it. Unless the Lord builds the house, they labour in vain. And like David, we want to always remember that it is the Lord's strength, that on our own we don't produce it. So yeah, just leave it there and just praise the Lord for that. Dave, would you want to close the meeting in prayer for us? Thank you, Lord. Praise you.
Father, we just praise you, Lord, and we rejoice and give you thanks, Lord, for that you've blessed us this day, Lord, with your words and your wisdom, Lord. Lord, you lift us up and you hold us in your hand there, Lord, and you continue to bless us, Lord. We just look that you might continue to bless all those needs that we have here in this fellowship and the things that people have need of in their lives, Lord. You'll surely bless them, Lord. And we just thank you, Lord, for giving us people to preach your gospel to, Lord, and to bring into this meeting and souls to save, Lord. We just look to you to continue to bless each and every one of us and this fellowship now. In Jesus' name. Hallelujah.
Amen.